the Star City Events Invitational 2010 in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm here with Lewis Laskin, playing in the Invitational with a blue-white deck that he's very proud of, right?
Definitely.
So tell me, what's different about this blue-white deck from the other ones that we've seen?
I've been playing blue-white for about 2 years now, and for a while at least, I think Mana League's been the industry standard. Everyone plays 4 of it in every control deck and doesn't question it at all. They find bad matchups to be decks like Valakut, and part of the problem I think is that they're playing 2 mana for a counterspell they can be playing for 1. Spell Pierce is almost strictly better in this meta game. It's hard to say strictly better, but paying half as much mana for the same spell really seems good, especially when a lot of the major decks you can't even be casting Mana Leak against their creature spells because you're afraid they're going to summon and trap you out of the game.
So it was like, so cancel was the standard at one point.
Definitely.
And then when Mana Leak came out, people were really excited. But now you're saying 2 mana is too much?
Yes. I think Mana Leak's an awesome card, and it's definitely still playable. I'm still playing some of them. But in this particular metagame, where everything, all the decks are playing 1-drop, 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 turn them all sideways, or 4-mana creature spell. If it doesn't resolve, then I'm playing a 6-mana creature spell. So it's really hard to be playing Mana Leak, especially when the threats. If you're casting Mana Leak on turn 2 instead of a removal spell against some of the aggro decks, you're probably going to be dead on turn 3 or 4.
Alright, so let's look at the card itself.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I think the most important thing about blue-white right now, as opposed to other control decks, is Gideon Jura. He's absolutely absurd. Between Gideon Jura and Colonnade, a lot of times you just stabilize the board around turn 6 or 7, and you're killing them on turn 7 or 8, completely regardless of what they're playing. The full set of Tectonic Edge with only 25 lands, a lot of people look at and think is weird, but Tectonic Edge is absolutely absurd right now. With the amount of good board sweepers you have, like Ratchet Bomb and Day of Judgment, a lot of times the games that you lose are just because of man lands or actual Valakuts. So Tectonic Edge is huge right now. Everflowing Chalice definitely helps with Tectonic Edge, and casting Jace the Mind Sculptor or Day of Judgment on turn 3 is absolutely absurd. And a lot of times they'll just curve out turn 4 Gideon Jura, turn 5 attack you for 10, turn 6 attack you for 10, and very few decks can deal with that as well. One of the biggest things that people found weird when looking at the deck list was the number of 1-ofs, like Journey to Nowhere, Wall of Omens, and Contagion Clasp, and Foresee. But the problem with a lot of cards in blue-white, when you're seeing about half your deck in any game, is that some of the cards have so much diminishing returns, it's hard to play them in multiples. Contagion Clasp is absolutely absurd when you draw it by, like, with a Tumble Magnet or any Planeswalker. Or it's really good with Everflowing Chalice, winning the mana battles in control mirrors. But when playing more than one of them, I drew them way too often, and they just didn't have enough synergy. Journey to Nowhere is great because it just says kill your creature. Obviously, it could be better if Ratchet Bomb wasn't in the deck. But even with Ratchet Bomb, the interaction with Sun Titan is exciting, and you just need a spell that says I kill you.
Yeah. So basically, do you hold this in the early game and wait for like their biggest guy, or?
If you need to run it out, a lot of times you just run it out. It's really great against Oracle of Moldiah, especially against the decks that play Oracle and you don't have time to counter them, or the Rug decks are able to play Oracle with counter backup. Journey's a great answer. You have to watch out for acidic slimes, but again, when you get it back with Sun Titan, it's just as much of a blood, if not more. The one for C has been awesome. A lot of people are wondering why I'm not playing a 6th Jace instead of the one for C. If you're ever behind in a game though, if you're behind against aggro, you really need to find a Wrath effect or lots of removal spells immediately, and you don't have the time to stumble. And for C lets you see 6 cards as opposed to the 3 cards you would see with Jace the Mind Sculptor. Especially the fact that you don't have to put 2 of them back on top of the deck can be really huge. In combination with Jace, you're seeing at least 20% of your deck in one turn, which is really exciting. And if you're behind against other control decks, if you're behind on board and they have a Jace, it's almost impossible to catch up using your own Jace. But if you can draw for C, you oftentimes see an answer for all the cards they have on the table in addition to a Jace to answer that later. So it's been really great.
It sounds really awesome, actually. Would you consider running more? It seems really good.
It's definitely a consideration. The problem is there's very few 3-drops in the deck, so it's very like 4 or 5-drop heavy. So it's hard to be playing lots of spells that don't have like a profound effect on the board immediately. but of the spells that don't have an effect on the board immediately, I think that's the best one.
Okay. So let's talk about Tumble Magnet. This is kind of like a recent card that became really popular.
Definitely. Tumble Magnet's absolutely absurd. It's really good at Contagion class, but its interaction with Gideon Jura is just awesome. A lot of times I'll just run out of Tumble Magnet against a deck like Valakut, and a few turns later they drop a Primeval Titan, and it's not a big deal because they get 2 Valakuts, and so they just paid 6 mana for 2 Valakuts. I untap, tap their Primeval Titan, and kill it with Gideon Jura, and they're back to having 0 outs. So it's really awesome. The synergy with Gideon Jura is great. Being able, it definitely neuters the quest deck. It makes them more or less unable to win because unless they have multiple equipments, it's very unlikely that they're going to do anything effective through a Tumble Magnet. It's good against Boros in the same token, and even against other control decks or decks that win with man lands like Celestial Colonnade, Raging Ravine. It's very hard to invest all of your mana for a turn in a Control Mirror on a man land when it's going to get tapped down by a Tumble Magnet.
Right. So what's with the one of Wall of Omens?
So in testing, Valakut was a very good matchup for me, and I was running Trinket Mages at the time, and I cut the Trinket Mages in the Brittle Effigy, and I added a 4th Spell Pierce, and there was still a slot, and I was originally running 1 Spreading Seas, 1 Wall of Omens instead of the 4 Spell Pierce, but the Wall of Omens is really good because it slows down the Vampires deck and the Boros deck, and them nut drawing you is one of the scariest things that can happen. Because even your turn 2 removal spells like Ratchet Bomb aren't active until turn 3. And so Wall of Omens does a great job of making people overcommit into an onboard Ratchet Bomb, just not have a choice. And with 3 Wraths, it's also really good. But worst case, like a lot of people are afraid that it's going to be a dead card against Valakut, but worst case scenario, it ends up chumping like a Gaia's Revenge. And the times when I've been able to get it back with Sun Titan, when they have an active Gaia's Revenge, it's game breaking because that way I don't have to chump with my Sun Titan.
Cool. Alright, let's look at some of your sideboard cards.
Definitely.
Okay, let's start with Leyline down here. What are these? This is obviously for Valakut, right?
Well, Leyline of Sanctity is a really interesting card. It's like Ivory Mask, so it's really cool. Black-Red Vampires is a huge deck right now in Moto, and Leyline of Sanctity completely shuts them down. Their plan is to attack you with a bunch of 1/1s and 2/2s, and then when you get to 8 or 10 life, you always stabilize, and they just blow you out with Calastria Highborn triggers or a set of Lightning Bolts. And so Leyline of Sanctity turns off their Dresses, Inquisitions, Lightning Bolts, Burst Lightnings, Arc Trails, and Calastria Highborn triggers. So they're more or less cold to it since they have no enchantment removal in black or red. So it's really good against them. Valakut, it turns off the Valakut plan. I'm also playing Spreading Seas on the board and a full set of Flash Freezes, and I actually like the Valakut matchup to begin with. So I usually bring in only one of the 2 Leylines against Valakut because the majority of the games I end up losing to them are because of Gaia's Revenge or Avengers Zendikar. So it definitely has the value of stopping them from just randomly killing you with Valakut, but I think it's even better in other matchups. Oh, it's also really good against the blue-black control deck. They're unable to kill you with Jace. They can't Dress, Remember Side, or Inquisition you. So.
Right. So you boarded in actually in a lot of matchups.
Yeah.
What would you board out for these guys?
It depends on what deck I'm playing against.
So against control, you probably board out Days.
Yeah. I think Day Judgment's actually been one of the best cards in the deck. I was playing 0, then 1, then 2, and now I find myself playing 3. It's actually amazing against Valakut and Eldrazi Green, and it's hard to take out all of them against the control decks because sometimes you just need an answer to their Frost Titan or random Titans. So, but definitely decrease them against control decks.
Right, let's look at this special card right here.
Definitely.
I haven't seen this card like in any deck so far. What made you decide to go with Precursor Golem?
In Block Constructed, that card's been an actual beating, and I always just get owned by it. And
in what decks in Block Constructed?
I play mostly like the Venser Blink control, and all the mono blue decks or like some random Venser decks will just be playing Precursor Golem.
Okay, so what matchups would you side this in for in Standard?
The Rug deck and any aggro deck that I expect to take out their burn or that doesn't have burn. I think it's fine against elves, but mostly the Rug deck is the only deck that I wasn't very comfortable against playing game 1, and I expect them to take out their Lightning Bolts. And I think the Precursor Golem will be very good against them.
Okay, so what happens in game 3 though? Like, what happens when they see this guy come out? Do you think do you board them out because you expect them to bring burn back in?
It depends. I think you have more information than whether or not you killed them with Precursor Golem. If they reach for their sideboard and start changing cards, it's definitely worth consideration taking them out. If they're bringing in multiple cards, then you probably don't want both of them because they're probably bringing back in bolts. But at the same time, the card's so good against them and they can just easily be bluffing that it's hard to take all of them out.
Okay, awesome. All right, so what are these guys for? Red matchups?
Like, yeah, the only way you lose to the Vampires, Boros, and Mono Red is if they're killing you on turn 3. And so Condemn is just insurance.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, thank you so much.
Definitely.
Awesome deck.